El Salvador is a country located in Central America, right here to be precise, and is best known for starting a war over football. Yeah. Anyway, I was bored, so I decided I want to give this great nation a shot inside of Hearts of Iron 4. So, I booted up the game, and immediately made my worst mistake of the playthrough by keeping historical AI focuses off. My goal for the playthrough was to try and reconquer Central America, because there is no way I'm going to try and conquer the world as El Salvador in vanilla HoI4. That just isn't happening. I do not hate myself. Anyway, sit back and relax as I try to reconquer Central America as El Salvador. Enjoy. As soon as I could, I justified on Honduras. They are my only neighbour in Central America, so my conquest would have to start here. At the same time, I'd also have to improve my army divisions because these templates were absolutely awful. So, I hired a new army advisor for the extra offense, and then doubled the amount of manpower in my division so that I'd actually be able to fight in Honduras instead of just die instantly. At the same time, I'd also decided to rush down my industry tree so I'd get more civs, and then more mills to be able to produce more guns to sustain these better divisions. Eventually, wartime rolled around. My plan to defeat Honduras was simple yet cunning. I decided I'd try and encircle the capital and eventually grind down their units, as they'd disappear due to the encirclement penalty. During the war, I'd also got aid from Italy, which was nice. And then eventually, and quite easily, Honduras fell. I was able to take the territory and also secure that extra piece of chromium, which was quite nice. During the war, I'd also justified Nicaragua, so I'll be able to conquer them shortly after I conquered Honduras. Shortly after the war, I also decided to justify in Costa Rica. It allowed me to conquer Central America a lot quicker, but also wouldn't have to worry about the allies intervening at all. I decided to also add some support artillery into my units so that they'll be able to get more soft attack and be able to break through enemy lines a lot easier. Now, it was time to declare war on Nicaragua. Now, this war would be more difficult than I was initially thinking it would be. I'd have to grind up against the Nicaraguan lines for a while, and this ended up presenting a new problem, the fact I had not a lot of manpower. So I'd have to release Honduras as a puppet, which ended up being one of the biggest mistakes of the run, which I would regret deeply later on. After a long and grueling war, I was finally able to beat Nicaragua and annex them into my greater Central American empire. Next on the chopping block was Costa Rica. Unfortunately, this war was significantly easier and I was able to quickly annex Costa Rica into my greater Central American empire. The final nation on the chopping block was Guatemala. Fortunately, and quite similarly to Costa Rica, this war was substantially easier. My divisions were able to quickly break through the enemy lines, and I ended up getting a capitulation fairly quickly, and I was able to annex the final nation I needed to form Central America. However, I was unable to form Central America just yet, because I would have to re-annex Honduras. This ended up being a very long and painful endeavour due to the fact I have a very small industry, so I couldn't lend lease them much stuff, and building took ages. But I was patient and I was willing to get the job done. During this time, I decided I'd also go democratic, because why not? When in Rome. I also got an invite to join the Phalangist International. I didn't want to join a faction, obviously, because they were in quite a lot of wars and I didn't want to get dragged into it. Wait a second. Honduras is in the faction. They're not my puppet anymore. This would begin the next long and extremely annoying chapter of the game, as I'd have to try and defeat every single fascist nation in a war. This includes my neighbour Mexico, and obviously my former puppet Honduras. Whilst waiting for the conflict, I decided to flip democratic, so I'd be able to join a faction with democratic powers in, so I wasn't entirely alone in the war. My plan for the war was quite simple. I wanted to rush down Honduras whilst trying to hold the line against Mexico. Now, unfortunately, I may or may not have forgotten to record the start of the war, but to summarise what happened, I was able to rush down Honduras whilst obviously being able to hold against Mexico, as you can see. I joined the Balkan Entente, which the Americans were in. Unfortunately, the Phalangists moved into Nicaragua and Costa Rica. As you can see here, they are still there, and they've been a bit of a pain to kick out of the continent. But fortunately, the Americans would be able to steamroll through Mexico, and I was able to kick them out of the continent. Finally, after years of in-game waiting, I was finally able to press the much-needed button to reform Central America. This gave me cause so I could finally fix the manpower issues I was having. I was also able to get nukes. At this point I would like to point out that I was playing this before the new DLC came out, so yes, this is how I got nukes. To summarise what was going on with the war elsewhere, I just let the European allies deal with Germany, whilst I tried to deal with Venezuela as the US had managed to get a landing there. Colombia finally joined the war, so I was able to invade Peru through Colombia. This ended up being quite a grueling and long effort. I had to launch many carpet nukes just to try and push one province, and even then it didn't necessarily work. It was a long and painful process, so I ended up changing my sights to Europe. I launched the naval invasion of Austria-Hungary from Italy. This was successful, and I was able to invade core Austro-Hungarian territory, and shortly after this, the Central Powers collapsed. I didn't have a lot of war score in the peace deal, so I only got a small part of the German navy. However, as Germany had capitulated, it means that the Allies could now focus their attention on capitulating Poland, and shortly after this, Poland fell. Fortunately, I got more war score in this war, so I was able to actually take some territory from Mexico. Unfortunately, I also got cores on these, so this ended up boosting my manpower even more. Now we had to deal with the final threat of Japan, so I navally invaded Okinawa to try and use it as a base to get to the home islands. However, the Allies ended up getting there first, Greece being one of them, which was rather unusual. So I sent my troops into Japan, and eventually the Japanese too fell. As a prize, I ended up taking Siberia to add it to my glorious Central American empire. So there you have it, the El Salvador experience. It was painful, it was far more miserable than it should have been, and if you are going to play El Salvador, then please use mods, because the vanilla experience just isn't that good. I feel like I got a bit lucky because a few things hadn't happened in this game, which were quite interesting, to say the least. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like and subscribe, it helps out the channel tremendously, and I'll see you guys next time with whatever video it may be. Goodbye.